just another day or night at work. During my time working the night shift at a central prep center for a large funeral home group, I was tasked with various duties, including delivering casketed remains, touching up cosmetics, and delivering intercompany mail. It was an interesting job to say the least, and I encountered my fair share of strange occurrences. One particular night, I was working alongside a female coworker. We had just delivered a casket to a location across town, and we were in the process of touching up some cosmetics on another case. I remember leaning on the casket with my left arm, holding the cosmetic in my left hand, and using my right hand with the cosmetic sponge. My coworker and I were chatting idly about nothing in particular when the Toshier floor lamp on the head end of the casket suddenly cut out. We both paused, unsure of what to do. Still leaning on the casket, I looked up at the light and simply said, "Excuse me, I was using that." And just like that, the light turned back on. My coworker, clearly unnerved by the strange occurrence, fled to the van in the parking lot, but I didn't feel threatened or in any danger. In fact, I felt quite calm and collected. So I simply replied, "Thank you, now I can finish." And I continued touching up the cosmetics on the casket until I was satisfied with the result. When I finished, I turned the light back off, saying, "Good night and thank you," to whoever or whatever had turned it back on for me. It was a strange experience, to be sure, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude towards the mysterious force that had helped me finish my task. A ghost that was living in my curtains. When I was only 2 years old, my family moved to a new house. As a young child, I slept in my own room, in a crib with a few check-ins from my parents every night. I remember my room had a big window right beside my bed, and my parents had to put up a new black curtain to block out the sunlight. My first encounter with the ghost, or at least that's what I started calling him, was when I was still a baby in my crib. I remember seeing him a few meters away from me, but I wasn't scared. It's my first memory of him, and it always stuck with me. I don't remember much about my early childhood, so I can't say for sure if I saw the ghost more often when I was a toddler. But my next memory of him is when I had my own new bed. Every night I touched the black curtains, I would see him and almost always shift to a dreamlike place where the ghost was with me. I did this for about 3 or 4 years until I was 7. At the time, I didn't really think much of it, but as I got older, this one thing that always happened started to stick in my mind. I always kept my door locked and the black curtains down. Whenever I was in this dreamlike state, I'd instantly wake up from it if my parents were about to open my door, and this happened every single time. When I was about 11 years old, touching the black curtains started to scare me. I began to avoid them. I never told anyone about my experience with the ghost, and eventually, I convinced my mom to take the curtains off and throw them away completely. As I got older, I couldn't help but wonder if there was an explanation for what I had experienced. Was there a reason why this was happening to me? And had it happened to other people before? I doubted that so many memories with the ghost were just my imagination running wild. To this day, I still think about the ghost from time to time, and I wonder if anyone else has had similar experiences. It's a mystery that'll always intrigue me, and one that I may never fully understand. My house was haunted by 3 spirits. 2 years ago, I moved to a new place to pursue my studies. Initially, everything seemed fine, but after a while, strange things began to happen. My neighbors would often ask me if everything was all right, and they would stare at me weirdly whenever I went out. At first, they were just being nice to me because I was new to the area, but I started feeling uncomfortable with the atmosphere around me. I began to feel an unknown presence in the house, especially during the night. It was definitely unsettling, but then things got even creepier when I saw a ghostly reflection in the mirror. At first, I thought I was just hallucinating because I was so disturbed by the strange occurrences in the house. But I saw the figure twice, and I realized that I wasn't hallucinating after all after that. The reflection was that of a child, but the face disappeared in a flash. I was scared and frozen at that moment because I'd never seen anything abnormal like this before. I started looking for a new house, but unfortunately, no houses were available for rent. I felt helpless and disturbed by the fact that I had no option but to stay in that same haunted house. So I decided to cleanse the house, hoping that everything would be fine after that. The house seemed normal for a few days, but suddenly, even more paranormal activity began to happen. Lights would flicker and objects would move, photo frames would break, and I would hear whispering and knocking sounds from the window, especially during the night. All these happenings led me to develop insomnia. I could barely sleep because whenever I tried, I would dream about the kid, and my body would become paralyzed. My health condition deteriorated day by day, and my parents got concerned. My mom even started noticing shadow figures moving around the house during the night. She clicked a few pictures too. Luckily, one of the pictures captured an abnormally long figure with only 4 fingers on its hand. It was terrifying enough to scare someone to death. Finally, a neighbor told me the truth about the house. Before I moved in, 3 families lived there, and 3 people died in that same house. A kid died mysteriously, a man died in a sudden road accident, and an old man died due to a heart attack. After hearing that, I was sure that the house was definitely haunted by multiple spirits. Although they never harmed us, we were still frightened and disturbed by the strange occurrences in that house. We had no choice but to continue living there until we found a new place to move into. The night I almost didn't sleep. The night of May 11th, 2020 was a night that changed my life forever. My dear grandfather, a Korean War veteran, had lost his battle to cancer a few days before, and I was asked to spend the night with my grandmother to keep her company. As a family, we were all still grieving, and the thought of spending the night alone in that house with my grandmother was daunting. As the night progressed, everything seemed to be going well. We watched some TV and talked about my grandfather, and we had dinner. But as it got later, my grandmother and we decided to go to bed. As the taller member of the family, I was used to sleeping in the Davenport whenever I stayed over. I was just about to drift off when I glanced at the clock on the wall. It read 11:10 p.m., and that's when it happened. A creepy voice interrupted the silence, and both my grandmother and I heard it. It was a woman's voice, and it sounded like she was saying Barb or Bud. At first I thought it was my grandmother speaking, but the voice was unfamiliar. We were the only ones in the house, so I couldn't have been a family member either. I tried to brush it off and get some sleep. The next morning during breakfast, I asked my grandmother if she had heard the voice. To my surprise, she confirmed that she had. We both knew that we had heard the same thing. There were a few possible guesses as to who the woman could have been. The first possibility was my grandmother's mom, who had passed away on my first birthday from a stroke. She was 103 years old. The second possibility was my granddad's mom, who had passed away in the early 90s. The third possibility was an aunt that I had seen as a child in my granddad's bedroom. She had passed away long before I was born. The experience was both eerie and comforting at the same time. It felt like my grandfather was still with us in some way, trying to comfort us in our time of grief. It was a moment that I'll never forget, and it made me realize that there are some things in life that are beyond our understanding. UFO sighting from June. It's been almost 6 months since I saw it, but it's still fresh in my mind. I feel a bit silly for sharing it now, but I want to get other people's thoughts on it. This is the only thing in my life that I can say without a doubt that I saw a UFO. It was around 2:30 a.m. on Monday, June 14th, 2020, and I was in Indianapolis, Indiana, in a Bates Hendricks neighborhood. I remember the date so vividly because it was only 5 days before I was set to move. As I had the next 2 days off from work, I decided to take a walk around my neighborhood as a way to say goodbye to the place I had called home for some time now. As I was only inches away from my apartment, I saw it flying over. It looked like every textbook description of a flying saucer, and yet it also looked like a ball of fire floating across the sky before disappearing behind the trees in the alley on my block. I still remember the feeling of my heart beating fast and my hands shaking as I tried to make sense of what I had just witnessed. My first thought was that it could have been a meteor, but it seemed too low to the ground to be one of those. It also didn't make any sound whatsoever, which ruled out the possibility of being a radio-controlled drone. I had seen kids in the neighborhood playing with them after dark, and I knew how they worked. What really creeped me out was how low it was to the ground. There was no way that it couldn't see me, I remember thinking. I'm moving in 5 days, please don't abduct me tonight. It continued its trajectory in a southwestern course from what I could tell, and I watched it until it disappeared from sight. As a guy who's skeptical of extraterrestrial life and the existence of UFOs, this particular experience shook me to my core. I couldn't stop and think about it for days, and I was even considering reaching out to local authorities to see if anyone else had reported seeing something similar. In the end, I decided not to, but I did mention it to a few friends and family members who were equally intrigued and curious about what I had seen. All in all, it was pretty uneventful, but it was an experience that I'll never forget. I still wonder what it was that I saw that night and if anyone else had seen it. I'm open to any explanation or theories about what it could have been. Down south, a long time ago. I'm now a man in my 30s, but the memory of the scariest experience of my life still haunts me. It all happened when I was just 11 years old and still living in my town where I grew up. My friend John and I decided that we'd have a multi-night of hanging out and playing video games with all the junk food. We started the first night at my place, playing Resident Evil 2 on my PlayStation 1 while munching on Doritos and drinking Mountain Dew. We stayed up all night and day, taking turns with the controllers whenever one of us died. By the end of the day, we had all but beaten Leon's story. The next day, we went to John's parents' house where his grandfather also lived. He was a widowed Southern Baptist preacher who spent most of his time watching TV and smoking cigarettes. John's parents liked to go out on the weekends and visit his mom's sister, which meant that we could stay up all night once again. On the second night, we were both tired and jacked up on sugar and caffeine, arguing over the controller. Mr. G, John's grandfather, walked into the small back room of the trailer and asked us to keep it down a little while he was sleeping on the couch, just 10 feet away. He informed us that there was plenty of deli turkey and bread in the fridge for us to snack on, and then went back to bed. Around 2 a.m., John's mother called, but the call abruptly broke both our concentrations. John was in the middle of a game when he got devoured by a zombie, and I laughed, earning an arm slug in the process. John had his parents' old queen-sized waterbed that took up most of the room, and the phone was wedged between the mattress and the frame. So he went headfirst into the wall trying to answer the phone, putting his hands through the door. He looked at me and said, "Hey, my mom and dad are too trashed to come home, so it's just us and Pawpaw." By 2:45 a.m., I was deep in the bowels of the sewers of Raccoon City, and John was nodding off. So I woke him up and he decided to take a shower and wake himself up. About 3 or 5 minutes after he left the room, I heard something fall off the dresser that was wedged in the closet. I paused the game and then heard John's grandfather walking through the house. He was a big guy, so his footsteps echoed throughout the small metal box. Then I heard water stop running, and a loud slam coincided with the gaslight outside the back window of the room trailer flickering. I heard John scream, "No!" I jumped up and ran to the bathroom, where I found him half on the floor and half propped against the wall, looking up at the mirror, pale as a sheet. On the mirror was a large, much larger than mine or John's, handprint. John was crying, not boo-hoo crying, but sobbing. He said, "Will, there was a fucking Indian in the mirror in there looking at me. His eyes, they were leaking black, and he was staring right through me." At that moment, I heard another slam. I could hear his grandfather snoring as loud as could be, and heavy footsteps through the back of the trailer. I helped John up and put a towel over him. I stepped around the corner to see an empty black void of nothing. The light from the TV, even though it was white static, wasn't going past his granddad's feet. John asked, "What did you see?" I replied, "Nothing." I replied again, my mind still preoccupied with the memory of that terrifying night in the single-wide trailer on Bobo Road. It was a memory that haunted me, even now, years later. As a druid and a believer in the supernatural, I had encountered many strange and unexplainable things over the years, but the night with John was different. It was like nothing I had ever experienced before. I had always been fascinated with the occult ever since I was a kid. As a teenager, I delved deeper into the mysteries of the paranormal, reading books and researching on the internet, and even joining local ghost hunting groups. But that night had been a wake-up call for me. It made me realize that there was so much more to the world than what we could see or understand. After that night, I became obsessed with the supernatural, spending hours poring over books on demonology, witchcraft, cryptozoology, trying to learn as much as I could. I started attending pagan gatherings and joining online forums where I could discuss my experiences with like-minded people. But no matter how much I learned, the night with John remained a mystery. I tried to rationalize it, to explain it away as a trick of the mind, but I couldn't. There was something real about what had happened that night, something that defied explanation. Over the years, I had many encounters with the supernatural, some of them terrifying and some of them beautiful. I had seen ghosts and demons and encountered fairies and spirits, and even witnessed a UFO sighting. But that night with John remained one of the most powerful and significant experiences of my entire life. As I sat there, lost in thought, my friend asked me if I had ever experienced anything like that again. I shook my head, not wanting to go into too much detail. I didn't want to scare him or make him think I was crazy. But I knew that no matter how much I tried to ignore it, the supernatural would always be a part of my life. It was my calling, my destiny, and I was ready to embrace it no matter what mysteries it might hold. When the enemy is in your own mind, I find it quite absurd to believe the curses always have to be in some ancient language or have some cursed object involved. The truth is, simple conditioning and the introduction of concepts can be just as effective. Suggestive conditioning is a powerful tool that can decide everything from your routine behavior to your moral values. It can occur unintentionally or be directed towards specific individuals intentionally. One term often used to describe any illness or condition caused by the subject's own mind or psyche is psychosomatic. In fact, psychosomatic diseases are quite common in the world, ranging from simple rashes to fatal heart diseases. It's amazing how our thoughts and beliefs can have such a profound effect on our bodies. Speaking of fatal diseases, necrosis is a condition that was quite frightening. It's the rapid death of cells and tissue, and as the cells die, your body can't keep up with the build of masses of decomposing tissue. This can result in your body becoming a walking prison of rotting flesh, shaped with dips and pits exposing muscle tissue and tendons. The scary thing about necrosis is that it can happen to almost anyone for no reason at all. A small scratch that gets a minor infection, a spider bite, your skin getting too cold, a blood clot that goes unnoticed, or even just poor circulation can all lead to necrosis. To make things even more terrifying, when one cell dies of necrosis, it can release dangerous chemicals that speed up the process for the neighboring cells. Necrosis can spread on the surface layer of your skin or subdermally, which means under the skin, where it can go unnoticed and will most likely be brushed off as a new bruise or a new ache or pain like we all get going about our day to day. Now let me introduce you to the concept of voodoo death. This term was coined by Walter Cannon in 1942, and it refers to a purely psychosomatic phenomenon. Essentially, stress or fear causes the body to release a constant, and sometimes subtle, stream of adrenaline over time, which in turn causes blood pressure and oxygen levels to drop. This gradual lack of oxygen causes cells to wither and die, creating almost spontaneous outbreaks of necrosis throughout the body. Eventually, your heart's blood circulating systems are so damaged that you fade out from consciousness and rot to death. It's amazing to think about the power of our own minds and how they can affect our bodies. The idea of psychosomatic illness and voodoo death may seem far-fetched, but they're real phenomena that can have serious consequences. It's important to take care of our mental health and physical health, but not underestimate the power of our own thoughts and our own beliefs. One night haunting. I remember this incident like it was yesterday, even though it happened a while back. It was a late night around 1:30 a.m. or maybe even 2, when I was driving my friend home. We were on a road that I traveled almost every single day, and usually there was nothing creepy about it. However, that night, as I was driving down a small hill, something strange happened. I saw a skinny guy, looked to be maybe a teenager or young adult based on the build, in a black hoodie with the hood pulled up. He was on the side of the road that would be near my passenger side, and he walked out in front of my car, and then he stopped on the yellow lines dividing the road. As I had just seen a person in the road, I slowed my car, and when I got closer to him, it was like I blinked and he was gone. I was a little creeped out, so before I got home, I called my mom to have her come watch me in front of the car and tell her about it. She's not one to get freaked out about things like this, so she basically just brushed off my story. Now this is where things get really weird. Let me describe my dog's demeanor to you first. She's super easygoing. The only time she ever barks is when we vacuum the house because she's scared of it. She loves people, and when people and even strangers show up, she never barks. She just wants attention from them, and she's not particularly in tune with us or our moods for a dog, and that's been the way since she was a puppy. So when my mom came to see me, the dog greeted me as usual. Nothing weird. However, a couple of minutes after, my mom and the dog headed back to bed, and something strange happened. My dog turned the corner of my mom's room when there was nothing and started barking and growling like crazy. It was so unlike her to behave like this that we couldn't figure out what had gotten into her. We finally got her settled down, but after this, my mom became creeped out and decided that we would all sleep in the living room together. When we got settled in the living room, our printer in the next room turned on out of nowhere and started making noise like it was getting ready to print. But it did never print anything at all. It was spooky. We couldn't figure out what was going on. This was a couple of years ago, and since then, we've had a couple of small weird occurrences. But nothing as crazy as that night, and nothing that affected the dog. I've been trying to figure out why something may have followed me home, and why it was haunting us for one night. I've been looking for answers and insights from anyone who's experienced something similar, or who knows anything about the paranormal activity. But to this day, I still haven't found any answers. I'm getting increasingly spooked by my new house. Let me tell you about the house my husband and I bought. It was unlike any other house that we'd lived in before, and I didn't get any weird feelings from it like I did in other houses. But there was one room that needed to be redone due to water damage. The doorknob had been removed and the latch was on the outside of the door, making it a little bit unsettling, and we called it the dungeon. On our first night in the house, my husband was with me, so I can confirm that I wasn't alone in what I experienced. We were sitting in our bedroom, which had a clear view down the hall to the 2 kids' rooms on either side. We heard a sound and assumed it was one of our children trying to creep out. We thought we confirmed this when we saw a shadow move on the wall and we heard another creak. I asked my husband to go investigate, but he insisted that our son was fast asleep and couldn't have gotten back to bed that fast without making more noise. Our cat was asleep in my daughter's room, sitting loaf-style with his nose touching the wall, which was very unusual for him. However, he had just moved into the house, so I let it go. Our dog also barked and growled at my bedroom ceiling for the first few nights, which was odd, but we attributed it to him maybe being a puppy, and us being in the new environment and all. Since then, I've had several moments where I see movement at the top of the stairs. The movement is always the same color, which is difficult to describe, but I can only say that it's cloud-colored. Almost every time the movement is towards one specific room, but it comes from different angles. By the time that I look, it's already gone behind the corner. However, no one is upstairs when I see these movements. The first time I saw the movement, I thought I was watching a fur tumbleweed bouncing down the stairs. We have a golden retriever, and this happens sometimes. I got up to retrieve the ball of hair, but there was nothing there. I sat and watched it slowly, softly bounce down at least 3 steps for 20 seconds before realizing it was not a fur tumbleweed. I didn't have my glasses on, so the detail wasn't all there, but it looked like a fur tumbleweed to me from that distance. It moved strangely, but we were still learning where all the drafts were coming in from, so I shrugged it off, still mentioned it to my husband because we were both still chuckle about the first night. Today was the worst. I had just come out of the bathroom, which has a direct line of sight into our bedroom. I thought I saw a dog jump off the bed, and I heard the corresponding thump. Our dog is very light, so in the dark, when the light hits him right, he can look sort of ominous. But I remembered that I had just let the dog outside. I called down to my husband and kids and asked where the cat was. My husband confirmed that the cat was perched in the window, so I knew it wasn't him. I'm not sure what made that noise, but it was definitely unsettling. Overall, there had been several strange occurrences in our new house, especially in the dungeon. I'm not sure if it's just my imagination or if there's something more to it. Regardless, I can't wait till we finish renovating that room and we can put it behind us. Two mini encounters in one. It was a while back, around the year 2008 or so. I remember waking up one morning feeling completely normal, but as I yawned, I realized that no noise was coming out of my mouth. Panic set in as I ran to the bathroom, careful not to wake up my parents, who were still sleeping. I closed the door behind me and attempted to speak, but nothing came out. I tried to scream, but still nothing. I quickly ran to my bed, feeling very uneasy, and under the covers I closed my eyes, trying to calm myself down. After a while, I opened my eyes again, and to my relief, I could speak. My parents woke up a bit later, and I asked them if I had woken them up by screaming, but they seemed confused, and I disregarded it. I couldn't explain what had happened, but I felt like something otherworldly had played with me. I felt lethargic and short of breath even after waking up, which was very unusual. Fast forward to a year ago, I was still living in the same apartment on the 15th floor of a cheap old building downtown. It was a normal night and I was trying to fall asleep, but for some reason I just couldn't. It was probably around 3 a.m. when suddenly I heard a loud voice shouting, "Get down on the ground," followed by 3 gunshots. My heart was pounding as I jumped out of bed and looked down through my window, and sure enough, I saw the red and blue lights and 3 cop cars. I was curious and started looking around to see if anyone else was watching. But to my surprise, there was absolutely nobody. I looked for a solid minute until everything became silent and the lights disappeared. That's when I heard 3 loud and fast knocks on my door, and then I could see an ominous white light around the door frame. I was terrified, but somehow I managed to fall asleep. The morning after was one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. I tried my best to find the news of the police reports on the shooting incident, but no matter how hard I looked, I found absolutely nothing. It was as if nothing had even happened. I couldn't explain what I'd witnessed that night, and it left me feeling very uneasy. To this day, I still think about that encounter, and I wonder if it was just my imagination or if something truly otherworldly happened that night. Weird warning. It It was just a few nights ago, on Friday, October 23rd, when I had one of the strangest experiences of my life. It was around 9 a.m. and I was laying in bed trying to wake up for the day, and I was drifting in and out of doze, feeling comfortable and cozy in my warm bed, and suddenly I heard a loud beeping sound. It was just one single second tone, but it was extremely high-pitched and it made me jump out of my skin. At first I couldn't figure out what was going on. The sound reminded me of an intercom, the kind you hear before someone speaks into it. But it was different somehow, more urgent, more ominous. And then I heard a voice. It was a man's voice, unfamiliar to me, and it said just 2 words. "Something is coming." I was completely freaked out and I looked around my room in a panic, trying to see if there was anything out of place. I was alone in the house, and my fiancé had left for work a few hours earlier. I couldn't see anything unusual, so I lay back down in bed, trying to listen for other sounds. And then I heard it. The tapping of raindrops on my roof. It was the telltale sound of a storm about to hit. I realized that I had left my 2 pups outside when my fiancé left for work, and I knew I had to go get them inside before the rain started pouring down. Thankfully, when I went outside to get them, they were both 100% dry, and this was a huge relief for me as I had just come home from the hospital the night before, and I was still recovering from pneumonia and a punctured lung, so drying off 2 wet dogs would have been almost impossible for me to do in the time. I could barely walk to the door, let alone wash them and bend over and take care of them. Once the dogs were safely inside, I checked my phone to see if I had any messages or alarms that could have made the beeping sound that I had heard earlier. But there was nothing at all. My phone was on vibrate, so it couldn't have even made a sound, and there were no other sounds in the house that could have the source of that noise. In my opinion, something or someone had warned me that the storm was coming. I don't know who or what it could have been, or if it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but I am grateful that it happened, as it allowed me to get my dogs inside before they got soaked in the rain. It was a strange and unsettling experience, but it also reminded me of the mysterious ways that life can surprise us. Creepy girl in all-white hospital gown with brown leather bag and no shoes or socks. A few years ago I had an experience that still gives me chills to this day. It was the middle of summer and my sister and I were driving home around 2:30 a.m. We had stopped at a 7-Eleven just a few hundred feet from our subdivision to grab some snacks. As I was getting my sister's candy, I looked over the corner of the parking lot and I saw a girl who looked like she had been described in horror movies. Her hair was messy and uncombed with leaves and twigs stuck in it. I noticed a small set of woods behind the 7-Eleven, so I assumed that she had been wandering around there. The girl appeared to be in her early 20s and crouched like a baseball catcher hugging a weird leather satchel. As I took a few steps toward her to see if she was okay, her head sprang up and locked onto me. I remember feeling absolutely terrified as she walked really quickly out of the darkness and right at me. I quickly got back in the car and locked the doors. However, the girl kept walking towards the car. Instead of going to the window, she walked around to the front of the car and stared right at us. All the while, she kept hugging that weird leather satchel that looked like it was from the turn of the 20th century. She had a hospital gown on, like I'd never seen before. It was solid white, besides some dirt on it like she had maybe been crawling through the woods. I noticed that she had no shoes or socks either. She never said a word or even made an expression, really. So all we could tell was that she looked sad or maybe distressed. We stared back at her for what felt like a minute, but realistically it was probably only 20 seconds or so before my sister pulled out and drove down the road. As we drove away, we talked about her attire and decided to turn back and call the police, if she was still there, that is. We assumed that she must have been an escaped mental patient or something like that. We quickly turned around and drove back no more than 2 minutes later, but there wasn't even a trace of her. We drove down each direction looking for her, thinking that maybe she had mental issues and was escaping a hospital or something like that. However, there were a few problems with our theory when we thought about it more. Firstly, there were not any mental hospitals or even regular hospitals anywhere near where we live. Secondly, she had a solid white, very old-looking medical gown, and it was hugging this really odd leather satchel that looked like it was straight from the early 1900s. I remember fixating on that bag when she stood in front of our car. It looked so out of place, and so did her gown. It had no pattern, just dirty marks on it. I couldn't figure out where she could have come from other than something like a mental hospital or being kidnapped and escaped. Maybe somehow she had that bag to try to use it to identify who kidnapped her or something like that, but my mind struggled to find a reasonable explanation for what the hell she was. I still sometimes feel like it was a figment of my imagination, but my sister and I both experienced it. We get so creeped out whenever anyone brings it up. I even considered calling the cops to report this case of a woman who matched her description, missing in my area. Maybe she's just a sex-trafficked victim, or escaped or something like that. But why wouldn't she just ask for help if that was the case? She certainly didn't act like somebody looking for help. And this experience made me believe 100% in the paranormal. It's the scariest thing I'd ever experienced, and I still can't shake off the feeling of terror whenever I think back to that night. The image of the girl in the hospital gown with the strange leather satchel is seared into my memory, and I've spent countless hours trying to come up with a logical explanation for what it is that I saw. At first, I was convinced that she must have been an escaped mental patient. The small set of woods behind the 7-Eleven would have provided the perfect cover for someone like that. But as I thought about it more, I realized that there were no mental hospitals near the area once again, so the theory fell apart. Then I started to wonder if the girl had been a victim of kidnapping. Maybe she managed to escape her captors and was wandering around in a daze, unable to ask for help. But again, that didn't make sense. Why wouldn't she just have approached us if something like that was happening? The more I thought about it, the more I became convinced that there was no logical explanation for what I saw that night. It was as if the girl had come from an earlier time or dimension, and her appearance in our world was completely inexplicable. Since that night, I've become a firm believer in the paranormal, and I've read countless books and articles about ghosts and spirits and other supernatural phenomenon, searching for answers to the question that have plagued me since that fateful night. But despite my best efforts, I've never been able to find a satisfactory explanation for what it is that I saw. It remains a mystery to this day, and I can't help but wonder if I'll ever be able to fully shake off the feeling of unease that it left with me. Whenever I pass by that 7-Eleven, especially late at night, I still feel a chill run down my spine. The memory of that night is something that'll always stay with me, no matter how hard I try to forget it. My Hatman experiences. Throughout my life, I've had numerous encounters with the infamous Hatman, although my experiences differ from those I've heard from others. From a young age, around 4 years old, I began seeing him lurking around my parents' house. Allow me to provide some context about the house itself. Situated in a southern region, this small farmhouse was constructed way back in 1920. Its antiquity lent an eerie charm to the place. The layout was peculiar, with every room interconnected in a circular fashion, except for the kitchen and the dining room, which branched off from the living room. Let me recount my first encounters with the Hatman. I must have been around 4 or 5 years old, as I had yet to start school, while my older brother and sister were already attending classes. On this particular night, they were away at their friends' houses and my father was at work. It was just my mother and me sitting in the living room, which had a small hallway leading to the bathroom. The bathroom, in turn, connected to my bedroom, which then connected to my parents' bedroom, ultimately leading back to the living room where my mother and I were seated. As we sat there, we noticed the bathroom light flickering from the living room. My mother, visibly afraid, was familiar with tales of demons and ghosts due to our Italian Catholic heritage. Growing concerned upon seeing her distress and being the only boy in the house, I felt compelled to investigate, despite the protests. Ignoring her warning, I ventured into the bathroom. As I entered, the light flickered one last time, and that's when I witnessed a chilling sight. In front of me stood an incredibly tall, shadowy figure, wearing a fedora-like hat. This mysterious man walked into my room, which was adjacent to the bathroom, just as the light switch for the bathroom was next to the entrance to my room. To provide a better sense of his height, let me mention that this figure towered over everyone in my family. While we ranged from 5'3" to 5'10" in height, he easily reached the top of the doorway, standing at approximately 6 feet and some inches. As a curious yet oblivious child, I foolishly decided to chase after him, determined to discover his identity. I pursued him from my room to my parents' bedroom and finally into the living room, where my mother was still seated. I distinctly saw him pass through the doorway into the living room, but to my confusion, he had vanished by the time I arrived. When I asked my mother if she had seen him, she replied in the negative, leaving me perplexed. At that age, I had no understanding of ghosts or demons, and this encounter only deepened the mystery. Now let me recount the second encounter with the Hat Man. I was approximately 6 or 7 years old when it occurred. Late one night, as I lay in bed in the top bunk, I noticed someone entering my room from my parents' room. Based on the sound of the footsteps, I assumed it was my father. However, since it was supposed to be sleeping time for me, I decided to feign slumber. Due to my elevated position, I could see the doorway leading to my parents' room. It wasn't until the figure reached the middle of my room that I saw his true form. An imposing man with a fedora-like hat, the same one that I had encountered before. Although I remained still, I observed him as he approached my closet and disappeared inside. I waited patiently, expecting him to emerge, but I eventually fell asleep without witnessing his departure. Moving on to my third and most recent encounter. It took place in 2020 when I was temporarily moving back into my parents' house, and I was trying to assist my mother's medical issues that were due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and at that point, I was 24 years old. My brother also resided in the house, making it slightly less eerie. One night, as I relaxed in my room, engrossed in my laptop, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. The door to the bathroom was slightly open, and it seemed as though someone was peering at me from behind it. Assuming it was my brother in need of my assistance, I removed my headphones and turned my attention towards the doorway. To my surprise and unease, it was the Hat Man again. There he stood, his distinctive hat casting a shadow over his face. We locked eyes, both observing each other for a few fleeting seconds, before he abruptly retreated behind the bathroom door. The peculiar layout of the house became evident once more. There was only a 4-inch span of wall between the door before it opened up to a longer wall leading to the rest of the bathroom. On the other side of that elongated wall was my closet. Throughout my life, I've witnessed the Hat Man peeking out from various doorways and passing by countless times. We had always resided in the same house, and these encounters were just the most significant ones that I experienced. It wasn't just me, though. My siblings and my mother also had their own sightings of the Hat Man. Strikingly, their descriptions matched mine before I even disclosed my encounters to them. This synchronicity only added to the enigma surrounding this mysterious figure. I should mention that when I was around 12 or 13 years old, my mother, driven by her faith, decided to hang crosses above almost every doorway in the house. However, she had overlooked my closet door and the 2 doors leading to the bathroom, one in my room and the other in the hallway. Interestingly, the Hat Man seemed to confine his appearances to these specific areas, where the crosses were absent. It was almost as if he were trapped within a confined space, encompassing that hall, the bathroom, the closet, and my room, an intricate web of walls segregating these rooms from the rest of the house. In addition to the visual encounters, I often heard the Hat Man's footsteps echoing through the house. On several occasions when I was home alone, showering with the hallway door locked, I distinctly heard the doorknob jiggling as if someone were attempting to gain entry. Upon finishing my shower, I would cautiously explore the house, only to find that no one else was home. Another peculiar incident occurred when my brother and I were in our room, deeply engrossed in our computers. Suddenly, we heard 3 distinct knocks emanating from inside the closed closet. We exchanged fearful glances, acknowledging the eerie nature of the entire situation, but we opted to ignore it, burying ourselves back into our online distractions. It's worth noting throughout my encounters with the Hat Man, I never felt fear. On the contrary, his presence invoked a certain sense of friendliness and lostness. The only instances where I experienced genuine fear were during the doorknob incident and the 3 knocks from the closet. Despite the negative emotions provoked by these occurrences, the Hat Man himself never elicited any negative feelings from me or my family. Furthermore, it appears that the Hat Man is not the only presence inhabiting our home. My siblings and I have witnessed and heard other unexplained phenomena that don't align with the characteristics of the Hat Man. Perhaps there are multiple entities coexisting within our residence. If you're interested, I can delve into these additional experiences in a separate post, or integrate them into this ongoing account of the Hat Man. This prompts further speculation as to whether the Hat Man is truly the singular entity that we encountered, or perhaps he's merely one manifestation among several shadowy figures or ghosts inhabiting our home. It is intriguing to note that most people associate the Hat Man with experiences of sleep paralysis, yet in my case, I have encountered him while both in and out of bed. Considering the diversity in experiences surrounding the Hat Man phenomenon, I wonder if there are shared characteristics or underlying connections between these encounters. Is there a common thread that ties together the various individuals who have witnessed this enigmatic figure? Exploring these questions could potentially shed light on the nature of the Hat Man and the underlying forces at play within our home. As I continue to navigate my daily life in this house, I remain vigilant, always alert to the possibility of another encounter with the Hat Man, or any other unexplained entities that might reside within its walls. It's a constant reminder of the mysteries that exist beyond our understanding, and the thin veil that separates our world from the realm of the supernatural. If there is interest, I'm more than willing to share any additional experiences my siblings and I have had within our home, whether they involve the Hat Man or other paranormal phenomena. Each account contributes to the complex tapestry of our encounters and may provide further insight into the inexplicable occurrences that have become an integral part of our lives. In conclusion, my journey with the Hat Man has been both perplexing and intriguing. From my earliest childhood memories to the present day, this shadowy figure with his distinctive hat has woven himself into the fabric of my existence. While fear has not been a prevailing emotion during our encounters, there are undeniable senses of curiosity and wonder surrounding his presence. The Hat Man continues to defy easy explanation, leaving us with more questions than answers as we navigate the ethereal landscape of our shared experiences within the walls of our beloved yet enigmatic family home. The Prankster Ghost. In December of 2015, my family and I embarked on a new chapter of our lives as we moved into our new home. It was a sprawling ranch-style house situated on an acre of land in a wonderful neighborhood. Built in 1961, the place exuded a timeless charm, despite its slightly run-down appearance upon our arrival. The yard was overgrown, giving the property a touch of neglect, but we saw past that and focused on the potential that it held. We were thrilled about the prospect of living in a larger house that encompassing all of our living spaces on a single level. During the process of inspections and paperwork, we had the opportunity to speak with the lady who was selling us the house. She informed us that she had purchased the property from a long-time owner named Mike and his wife Mary. Sadly, Mary had decided to sell the house after her husband's passing, as she no longer wished to reside there alone. Once we settled into our new house, my wife took a week off from work to personalize and make the house feel like our own. One of the rooms that particularly caught her attention was a small library or a study area, complete with a wet bar and several bookshelves. In that room, we discovered a large oak railroad desk, covered in our daughter's belongings. As my wife began cleaning off the desk, she accidentally knocked over a water bottle, which clattered to the floor. She swiftly picked it up, wiped it clean, and absent-mindedly placed it on the corner of the now spotless desk before moving on to another task. As she made her way down the hallway past the office later that day, my wife happened to glance into the room and was taken back by what she saw. The water bottle that she had left on the corner of the desk was now standing upright, upside down, balanced on its own lid. Astonished, she immediately called me to recount the peculiar incident. I tried to rationalize the situation, suggesting that she must have inadvertently placed the bottle upside down herself. However, when I arrived home that afternoon, she eagerly handed me the bottle and challenged me to recreate its peculiar stance. It took numerous attempts before I could successfully balance the bottle, as it's slightly convex and the lid made it particularly challenging. In my role as the more rational member of our partnership, I assured my wife that the simplest explanation was likely the correct one. I gently dismissed the idea of ghosts, much to her annoyance, and suggested that there must be a logical explanation for the bottle's behavior. Despite my attempts to alleviate her concerns, I too couldn't help but feel the tinge of unease deep within. As I gradually settled into the rhythm of organizing our belongings from the move, peculiar incidents continued to occur. One day my wife called out to me from the hallway, clutching a framed print in her hands. She directed my attention to the floor where a perfect puddle of water had materialized, seemingly out of thin air. Bewildered, she explained that she had learned the print against the wall while preparing to hang it, only to discover it soaking wet upon her return with a hammer. The weather outside was bright and sunny, making it unlikely that the water had entered through a leak or some other natural cause. Furthermore, the water had appeared not only on the floor, but also on part of the frame that hadn't even touched the ground. Seeking a logical explanation, I ventured into the crawl space beneath the house to examine the plumbing, and to my surprise, no line water running beneath the hallway where the mysterious puddle had even formed. The pipes all extended straight back to the kitchen and then branched off to the bathrooms. Nowhere near the location of the inexplicable occurrence. My wife, unconvinced by my attempts to explain away the strange happenings, grew increasingly unsettled. Determined to find a resolution and put her anxieties to rest, she decided to take matters into her own hands. The following day, while I was away at work, she took a courageous step and began to communicate with what she believed to be the ghost of Mike, the previous owner. With trepidation and a hint of skepticism, she entered each room of the house, speaking aloud as if addressing an unseen presence. In her heartfelt conversations, she expressed her understanding of Mike's attachment to the house, and assured him that we intended to care for the property with love and respect. However, she pleaded with him to cease the unsettling occurrences that were causing her distress. We promised to honor his memory and keep the house in pristine condition. To my wife's relief, her experiences of strange phenomena seemed to diminish after a conversation with the presumed spirit of Mike. However, my daughter and I continued to witness and hear inexplicable occurrences from time to time. It was as if an ethereal presence lingered within our home, making its presence known through the subtle signs and unexplained phenomenon. One particular incident remains etched in my memory, vividly reminding me of an enigmatic nature of our home. 4 years ago, something extraordinary happened that challenged my skepticism and cemented my belief in the existence of a ghostly presence. It revolved around an unexpected and seemingly irrational desire I developed for a Corvette, a car that I'd previously despised. Even as a child, I never found them particularly appealing, yet inexplicably, my thoughts became consumed by the idea of owning one. I delved into Corvette forums, immersed myself in research, and, to my surprise, ended up purchasing one. Strangely enough, once the Corvette was in my possession, I felt an overwhelming and irrational sense of joy. 2 years ago, while on a long road trip with my wife, we found ourselves engaged in a conversation about Mike and Mary. It suddenly struck us that, aside from passing, he knew remarkably little about Mike. Fueled by curiosity, I decided to conduct an online research for his obituary, hoping to glean some insights into his life. Thanks to the power of Google, we soon discovered a tribute to him. The obituary painted a picture of a remarkable man loved by many, a person who had traveled extensively and left a lasting impact on those that he encountered. His premature demise at the age of 63, caused by pneumonia, had drawn heartfelt condolences from people around the world. As I read through the obituary, one line leapt out at me, sending chills down my spine. It stated, "He loved all cars of all kinds, especially Corvettes." The realization struck me like a lightning bolt. Could it be mere coincidence that my inexplicable desire for a Corvette aligned so perfectly with Mike's passion for the very same vehicle? It was a revelation that solidified the connection between our present experience and the lingering spirit of the previous owner. Embracing the peculiar circumstances surrounding our home, we decided to leave the envelope of photos, capturing moments of Mike and Mary remodeling the master bedroom, untouched. They belonged to their personal history, and we respected their sentimental value. Furthermore, we discovered little treasures scattered throughout the garden, heart-shaped stepping stones and whimsical garden gnomes hidden in secret nooks. Each time we stumbled upon these personal touches, we made a conscious effort to preserve them as a sign of reverence for the memories that resided within the property. Over time, we developed coping mechanisms to navigate the eerie occurrences that were occasionally unfolding within our home. Footsteps would echo through the hallways, and the garage and workshop became a hotbed for unexplained puddles of water. Initially, these incidents would send shivers down my spine, but gradually I learned to ignore the strange happenings, acknowledging them as peculiar idiosyncrasies of ghostly inhabitants. However, there was one incident that stands out in the most bewildering of them all. It occurred approximately 4 years ago and left an indelible mark on my consciousness. While I had always held a passing interest in cars, there was one particular make and model that I vehemently disliked: the Corvette. Even as a child, I failed to grasp the allure of those sleek, sporty vehicles. Yet, for reasons unbeknownst to me, an insatiable desire to own a Corvette began to consume my thoughts. Driven by inexplicable fascination, I delved into online forums, immersing myself in research and obsessively exploring every aspect of Corvettes. The idea of owning one took me until I eventually succumbed to its allure and purchased one. To my astonishment, the moment that I sat behind the wheel, an overwhelming wave of joy washed over me, as if the car had held some intangible connection to my being. 2 years ago, during a leisurely road trip with my wife, we found ourselves deep in conversation about the mysterious occurrences in her house and the enigmatic figure of Mike. It was then that we realized how little we knew about him beyond his passing. But I already said that, but the people who wrote this are writing the same thing again, so I'm reading it a second time. I decided to conduct an online search, hoping to find an obituary or some form of remembrance. With a stroke of luck, Google led us to the obituary of a man fitting Mike's description. As we perused the tribute to his life, a photograph caught our attention, a snapshot of Mike holding a cat, the same cat that I'd seen walking into our bedroom on that fateful day. The resemblance was uncanny. The pieces of the puzzle began to line, weaving a narrative that surpassed our wildest imaginations. However, the most chilling revelation lay in a single sentence within the obituary. He loved cars of all kinds, especially Corvettes. The connection between my newfound obsession with Corvettes and Mike's deep affection for them became gnarringly evident. It was as if some ethereal force had guided my desires, forging an inexplicable bond between the past and the present. Armed with this newfound knowledge, my wife and I embraced the notion that our home was a vessel for memories and lingering spirits. We continued to reside in the house, and gradually, the frequency of strange occurrences subsided. Perhaps we had acclimated to the presence of Mike's ghost, or perhaps he had found solace in our genuine respect and care for the house that he had once cherished. Occasionally, whispers of otherworldly things would dance on the periphery of our awareness, but as the years passed, we chose to focus on the beauty of our home and the memories that we were creating within its walls. We toyed with the idea of reaching out to Mary, the previous owner, to offer her photos that we had discovered. However, we hesitated, not wanting to rekindle any painful memories that may still haunt her. And so, our journey continued, intertwined with the ethereal presence of Mike's spirit. Our house became a sanctuary where the past and present coexisted, bridging the gap between the tangible and the intangible. Though we may never fully understand the mysteries that reside within our home, we've come to appreciate the extraordinary story that unfolded around us, a tale of love, loss, and the enduring power of the human connection, even in realms beyond our comprehension. The Gentle Child Spirit. I vividly recall the incident that unfolded when I was merely 7 years old. Before delving into that particular event, it's crucial to acknowledge the arduous backdrop against my life that had unfurled. I emerged from a deeply troubled and abusive childhood, where the maltreatment I endured was not confined solely to physical abuse, but also encompassed the realms of emotional torment, though thankfully it never veered into the realm of sexual abuse. Deprived to the simple joys and gestures that make childhood memorable, I had never experienced the warmth of a Christmas present, the delight of a birthday gift or card, or even the taste of a celebratory cake on special occasions. In fact, it wasn't until I reached my 20s that I was fortunate enough to savor my very first ever birthday cake, a gracious act performed by my compassionate friends who had discovered my woeful history and sought to compensate for the void left by my callous parents. Now, returning to that fateful night, I found myself in the throes of a particular harrowing experience. My parents, who were usually the perpetrators of my suffering, subjected me to a merciless beating before callously confining me to a bleak and isolated room. Left alone in the shadows, I wept incessantly as the searing pain from the blows to my face persisted, causing my tears to cascade down my cheeks like rivulets of sorrow. Amidst my desolation, a peculiar sound reverberated from the other side of the door where the lock resided. Assuming it to be my parents, my instinctive response was to conceal myself as best as I could, taking refuge behind the bed in an attempt to afford myself an extra layer of protection. Peeking timidly over the bed sheets, I observed the door creak open slightly, only to close just as swiftly. Believing that my parents had perhaps altered their course and decided against entering my room, opting instead to descend back downstairs, I gingerly resumed my place on the bed. Yet an eerie silence hung in the air, bereft of the telltale sounds of my parents, footsteps receding into the distance. In that disquieting moment, an unexpected occurrence startled me. A small hand, not much tinier than my own at the time, tenderly grazed my cheek, emanating an icy chill upon contact. Astonishingly, the very instant that wintry touch made contact with my skin, the anguish and torment that had previously gripped me began to dissipate, replaced by an almost instantaneous sense of tranquility that permeated my being. My tears ceased their ceaseless flow, and the pain, as if by some otherworldly intervention, gradually receded into the recesses of my consciousness. The touch, originally icy, warmed ever so slightly before ultimately vanishing into the abyss of the night. Emboldened by this unexpected solace, I succumbed to sleep. The grip of restlessness eluded me that night, and remarkably, even my persistent struggle with bedwetting seemed to be subsiding. When morning broke, I awoke to discover a diminutive teddy bear nestled beside my pillow, a totemic reminder of the extraordinary encounter I'd experienced mere hours prior. My parents, upon noticing my newfound companion, responded with a frenzy of fury. Their voices erupted in a cacophony of accusations and recriminations. "Why did you give him that bloody thing?" one of them bellowed indignantly, met by an equally vehement retort of, "I didn't get it for him, you must have, you wretched hag." As their quarrel raged on, it became abundantly clear that neither party had experienced a change of heart or harbored the faintest ink. Her parents, overwhelmed with emotions, shared with me the heartbreaking story of their beloved daughter. They explained that the family portrait had been taken shortly before Anna's untimely passing, capturing a moment frozen in time when their lives were filled with hope and dreams of their little girl. The mention of Anna's name sent shivers down my spine, for it was her cherished teddy bear that had appeared by my side all those years ago, bringing me solace and strength in my darkest moments. As I revealed the teddy bear to them, tears of both sorrow and joy welled up in their eyes. It was then that they confided in me deeply profound secrets, a wish that Anna had expressed before she departed this world. In her final days, Anna spoke of her desire for her beloved teddy bear to find its way into the arms of someone who needed it as much as she once did. Astonishingly, fate had interwoven our lives, connecting us through the ethereal realm of compassion and shared pain. Overwhelmed by the magnitude of this revelation, I handed them back the family portrait, understanding that it held immeasurable sentimental value for them. Yet, an act of immense generosity and love, they insisted that I keep the teddy bear, a tangible reminder of the profound connection between Anna's spirit and mine. They expressed their belief that it was Anna's wish for the bear to continue its mission of providing comfort and solace to those in need. Leaving their new home with a heart full of gratitude, I embarked on a new chapter of my life, carrying Anna's legacy and the power of her selfless love within me. That teddy bear became more than a simple toy. It transformed into a symbol of resilience and compassion and the enduring human spirit. It accompanied me through countless trials and tribulations, reminding me of the strength I had discovered within myself and the importance of empathy and kindness in a world that often feels indifferent. In the years that followed, I dedicated myself to spreading awareness about child abuse and advocating for the rights and well-beings of vulnerable children. Inspired by Anna's spirit and the touch of her small, cold hand that healed my wounded soul, I became a beacon of hope for those who had suffered as I once did. The teddy bear with his worn-out fur and threadbare patches stood as a testament to the transformative power of compassion, reminding me never to lose sight of the light that can emerge even from the darkest of circumstances. Today, as I reflect upon my journey and the extraordinary encounter with Anna's spirit, I'm filled with a deep sense of purpose and gratitude. The pain and suffering that marked my early years have become stepping stones toward a life dedicated to healing and making positive impacts of the lives of others. The touch of that small, icy hand, coupled with the warmth and love and understanding, continues to guide me, fueling my determination to create a world where every child can find solace, protection, and a chance to thrive. And so, with each passing day, I carry the memories of that fateful night and the remarkable journey that followed, forever grateful for the touch of a little girl's hand that transformed my life and instilled in me the unwavering belief that even in the face of unimaginable darkness, love and compassion have the power to heal and bring forth a brighter tomorrow. My family thinks our house is haunted. One of the earliest eerie encounters within our house unfolded about 11 or 12 years ago, involving my aunt who used to reside with us. Back then, she held a job that necessitated her departure in the early hours of the morning due to the long commute from our house to her workplace. Consequently, around 5 a.m., as she stepped outside, she was greeted by a disconcerting sight. In the pitch black of darkness, she noticed a figure resembling a man positioned behind her car. It seemed as though he was thoroughly examining the vehicle, completely oblivious to my aunt's presence. Reacting swiftly, she instinctively sought to cover behind a supportive beam on the porch, patiently awaiting the man's departure. However, to her surprise, he suddenly ceased all movement. My aunt, apprehensive yet curious, continued to wait, but the man remained idle, steadfast in his position. At that moment, a realization struck her. She possessed pepper spray in her bag. Seizing the opportunity, she retrieved the spray from her bag, cautiously peering around the corner, and witnessed the man completely disappear behind her car, vanishing from her line of sight. Gripping the canister tightly, she summoned her courage and charged toward the unknown presence. Though she swears she saw something, she struggles to explain the enigma that unfolded before her eyes. Now allow me to share my own personal encounter, which transpired approximately 9 years ago when I was at the tender age of 7. It was during a night when I fell asleep on the couch downstairs, a cherished routine I shared with my father as we delighted in watching television together. At the time of this occurrence, the only individual present in our house was my father and my 5-year-old brother and me. My father and my brother had ascended to my parents' room upstairs, leaving me as the sole inhabitant of the lower level. My mother, who worked night shifts, had already departed for her job, typically leaving our house around 9 p.m. and returning at 8 a.m. Nestled on the couch, I would typically face our fireplace, meaning that while laying on my side as often as I did, the fireplace would be the first sight to greet my eyes upon awakening. However, on this particular occasion, I stirred from my slumber to an unfamiliar scene. Instead of the familiar fireplace, darkness enveloped my vision, demanding a moment for my eyes to adjust, and then, to my astonishment, I perceived a lady standing there, her gaze fixed intently upon me. She bore the appearance of someone maybe of Mexican or Puerto Rican descent, or so it appeared to my young eyes. Clad in what seemed to be a dress or perhaps a maid's uniform, she simply stared, as if peering into the depths of my soul. Overwhelmed with perplexity and uncertainty, I found myself utterly transfixed, unsure of how to react or what to say. In a soft, almost whisper-like voice, she uttered the syllables L-A-L-A-L-A. This inexplicable encounter sent shivers coursing through my spine, rendering me incapable of offering any response. Succumbing to fear, I buried my head under the safety of my blankets, seeking solace in the embrace of sleep. The incident left me baffled, unable to rationalize or comprehend the true nature of what had unfolded before me. Although my younger brother believed it to be nothing more than a figment of my imagination, a mere dream, I remained haunted by the unexplained presence of the lady that night. My brother, on the other hand, he consistently regaled us with tales of peculiar occurrences within our household. He claims to hear strange noises and disembodied voices conversing, and even instances where he distinctly hears someone calling out his name. Now, it's important to take his stories with a grain of salt, as my brother has a tendency to fabricate and exaggerate events. However, one particular incident stands out among his repertoire of strange encounters. It happened when he was around 12 years old, or maybe 14, and on that fateful day our parents had decided to attend a concert, leaving my brother in charge of the house. They trusted him to handle the responsibility of being alone for the evening. As the evening progressed, he immersed himself into playing video games and seeking solace and distraction from the eerie atmosphere that seemed to permeate our little home. Little did he know that the night held a disconcerting surprise for him. Amidst his gaming session, my brother suddenly heard a blood-curdling scream, echoing through the empty house, calling out his name as if the person uttering it were in agonizing pain. The sheer terror and shock that gripped him can only be likened to the sensation of a sharp knife piercing his heart. His immediate assumption was that of our mother, who had somehow returned home and found herself in grave danger. However, as the realization dawned upon him that our parents had, in fact, left the concert hours ago, a chilling realization settled in. Something was dreadfully amiss. Fear taking hold, my brother swiftly locked his bedroom door, his mind racing with thoughts of a potential intruder or malevolent presence lurking within our home. He huddled in silence, straining his ears to catch any additional sounds that might confirm or dispel his worst fears. Time seemed to stretch infinitely as he remained in that state of high alertness, the repeated calling of his name echoing in his mind. Exhaustion eventually overcame him, and despite the gripping fear that still clenched at his heart, he succumbed to sleep. When my parents returned home from the concert, they discovered him curled up in my closet, seeking solace and security within its confined space. My father, armed with a key, had to unlock the door to free my brother from his self-imposed sanctuary. Trembling and distraught, he recounted the nightmarish experiences that had unfolded while we were away. Eager to ensure our safety, my father meticulously searched every nook and cranny of the house, desperate to find any evidence of an intruder or logical explanation for the chilling events. Yet, his efforts were in vain, as no sign of forced entry or indication of an outsider were found. On another occasion, it was my mother and I who bore witness to an inexplicable phenomenon within the confines of our living room. We were engrossed in watching television when, in the corner of our vision, we caught sight of a peculiar, shadowy figure hovering around the TV screen. Its ethereal presence seemed almost human-like, as if the ghostly silhouette were suspended in midair, defying the laws of nature. The shadow drifted slowly to the right before vanishing into thin air, leaving us dumbfounded and utterly perplexed. No logical explanation could account for what we had just witnessed. The amount of smoke and fire, or any tangible source of such phenomenon, only deepened the mystery, leaving us questioning the boundaries of our understanding. Finally, one of the most recent incidents occurred approximately a year ago, during a visit from my grandmother. She had chosen to spend the night in our guest room, which boasted a walk-in closet with a door that required the slightest push to open. It was in the depths of the night when my grandmother was jolted awake by a distinct rustling sound emanating from the closet. Fumbling to put on her glasses, she found herself staring directly into a pair of beady eyes peering back at her from the darkness. Startled and overcome with fear, My grandmother's instinctive reaction was to let out a piercing scream that reverberated through the entire house, rousing us from our slumber in a frenzy with confusion and concern. We rushed to her aid, hastily gathering in the guest room, trying to comprehend the source of her terror. As she recounted her harrowing encounter, my father, determined to protect his mother and unravel this enigma, bravely approached the closet, searched for any sign of an intruder or rational explanation. However, his thorough examination yielded no tangible evidence or any logical explanation for the pair of eyes my grandmother had seen. Perplexed and unnerved, we collectively pondered the inexplicable nature of the incident, realizing that there were forces at play within our home that defied conventional understanding. These series of unexplained events had left our family with an unsettling mix of curiosity, apprehension, and a longing for answers. We couldn't help but question whether there might be a rational explanation for these occurrences, perhaps rooted in the intricate workings of the house, or the residual energies of its past occupants. Yet, despite our attempts to seek rationality, the weight of these experiences left an indelible mark on our collective consciousness, forever ingrained in the tapestry of our family's history. It is with a sense of both trepidation and curiosity that I share these stories, hoping to find solace and connection through the experiences of others. We yearn for a community, be it on Reddit or elsewhere, where kindred spirits might offer insights and anecdotes or even shared encounters with the inexplicable. We understand the skeptical perspective that may dismiss these tales as mere figments of imagination or coincidences, but for us, these events are vivid, haunting memories that continue to defy explanation. In the end, whether one believes in the supernatural or clings to the realm of the rationale, our shared experiences within the confines of that house have forever shaped our perceptions. They serve as a constant reminder that the world we inhabit is full of mysteries that elude comprehension, and that perhaps just beyond the veil of our understanding lies a realm where the inexplicable finds its home. Apparently, red eyes in a closet is not normal. Grandma's house. When I reflect upon my childhood, a chilling memory resurfaces, one that continues to haunt me to this very day. It's a peculiar tale that even my own grandfather, in his aged wisdom, confirmed as his own experience. You see, as a naive and innocent child, I held the unwavering belief that every household harbored demons with ominous red eyes lurking within their closets. It wasn't until I reached the tender age of 13 that my misconceptions were challenged. During a sleepover at a friend's house, my paranoia peaked, and I adamantly insisted on keeping her closet door tightly shut as we slept. The very thought that she too had a red-eyed demon dwelling within her abode plagued my mind incessantly. I remember vividly how she complied with my peculiar request, extinguishing all sources of light in the room and arranging my sleeping bag right in front of the closet. To clarify, I did not encounter any red eyes that night, but my apprehension remained steadfast. Fast forward to my 20th year when I found myself staying at my grandmother's house. I had taken it upon myself to assist her by recording precious memories and organizing old photo albums. During our time together, she disclosed an intriguing revelation. The reason she habitually inspected the closet doors in the guest room whenever I slept there was due to my persistent claims of sighting demons with crimson eyes within those very enclosures. Although she never disclosed precisely when my visions commenced, she was convinced that they had begun when I was a mere 5 or 6 years old. Years later, my sister had her own encounter with the enigmatic red eyes during her stay at our grandmother's house. She began inquiring about this peculiar phenomenon, never having asked me about it until after our grandmother's unfortunate passing. Recounting her own eerie experiences within that dwelling, she confided in our mother, who regrettably dismissed her accounts as mere figments of her imagination. To this very day, the impact of those childhood encounters linger, leaving me utterly incapable of sleeping with an open closet door during the nocturnal hours. A compulsion born out of fear that the red-eyed demons might manifest once again within the confines of my sleeping quarters. In a bid to protect myself, I strategically scattered Lego blocks across the floor, as if to serve a formidable deterrent. My youthful mind had conjured the belief that all demons were inevitably barefoot and would therefore endure agonizing pain if they dared to cross my path, a belief that, in hindsight, seems rather comical. In conclusion, this personal narrative delves into the depths of my childhood psyche, unraveling the lingering effects of the phantasmal fear that persistently haunts me. The perplexing notion that demons with fiery red eyes dwell within the closet had permeated my young mind, fostering an unwavering belief that persisted until my adolescence. Even now, as an adult, the specter of those haunting encounters compels me to keep closet doors tightly shut, with an arsenal of Lego fortifications scattered at the ready, all in a desperate attempt to ward off any lingering shadows of my vivid childhood imagination. My sister's voice, and I think I was dreaming. In 2019, a devastating loss shook my world when my sister passed away due to medical reasons. We shared a deep bond, and her absence left an indescribable void in my heart. However, even in her physical absence, a strange occurrence began to unfold, weaving a tapestry of the supernatural into my life. Ghosts weren't unfamiliar to me, as I had encountered them before. One ethereal presence that lingered in my memories was that of an orange tabby cat named Kurtz. He had been my beloved feline companion until his departure from this world in 2011. Yet, inexplicably, I often sensed his spectral presence trailing behind me or gently brushing against me while I slept. Just recently, I found myself amidst a perplexing episode during one of my deep slumbers. I was abruptly awakened by the sound of my sister's voice calling out to me. Startled, my subconscious mind reflexively responded, causing my legs to involuntarily kick. Unluckily, it was my unsuspecting fiancé who bore the brunt of my nocturnal spasm, jolting him awake and causing him to stumble, barely avoiding a painful collision with a nearby bookshelf. My fiancé, ever the rational thinker, firmly believed that my sister's ethereal intervention had been an attempt to rouse me from my slumber and prevent the incident. His conviction stemmed from the belief that my sister in her spectral form had interceded to safeguard him from harm, nudging me awake to avert a potentially dire outcome. Another chilling encounter with my departed sister's ghost transpired during a visit to my childhood home, where my parents still resided. It was a typical day spent connecting with my nephew, who happened to struggle with math. Seemingly out of the blue, I discerned my sister's voice echoing in my ears, declaring, "He's just like you. You hated math too." Perplexed, I turned to respond, fully convinced that my sister had manifested herself beside me. However, to my astonishment, my nephew approached, clutching his homework, and asked me, "Mom said to ask you to show me how to multiply fractions." Bewildered, I sought confirmation from my mother, who denied any involvement in the matter. She reminded me that in the past, I had often tutored my sister in multiplying fractions, a subject in which I excelled. Though still confounded, I obliged and guided my nephew through the intricacies of the mathematical problems. Moments later, my mind filled with a sense of wonder as I descended the stairs, making my way to the guest room, a room once occupied by my sister. The atmosphere in that space had undergone a remarkable transformation, seemingly infused with otherworldly energy. To my surprise, my sister's cat, Chester, exhibited peculiar behavior throughout the night. Normally, he exuded a friendly and carefree demeanor, reminiscent of a furry bowling ball rolling through the house. However, that evening, he remained fixated at the foot of the bed, his eyes locked onto an invisible presence. As I observed him intently, a shiver ran down my spine as I realized that Chester was emulating the very mannerisms of my beloved Kurtz, who had passed away years ago. In an uncanny twist, Chester nestled himself beside my head, purring in a manner unfamiliar to his typical disposition. It was as though Kurtz's spirit had permeated Chester's feline essence, bridging the divide between the realms of the living and the dead. At that moment, my sister's voice resurfaced, seemingly emanating from the ethereal plane, posing an enigmatic question. "Are you reading that book?" Her words reverberated through the room, stirring a mix of curiosity and confusion within me. The book she referred to was none other than The Thief of Always by Clive Barker. What made her inquiry more perplexing was the fact that the book had mysteriously vanished after her passing, remaining undiscovered despite numerous searches and inquiries. Within the pages of that elusive book was a cherished photograph capturing a moment of joy and adventure. It depicted my sister standing proudly in front of Sirius's black house at Universal Studios, a testament to our shared love for fictional worlds and the magic that they held. The picture had been a cherished memento, a reminder of the vibrant spirit she possessed during her time on Earth. As her spectral presence continued to linger in the room, the pieces of the puzzle slowly started to come together. It became evident that my sister's ghostly visitations were not merely random occurrences, but deliberate attempts to communicate and connect with me from beyond the veil. Intrigued and determined to unravel the mystery surrounding my sister's ethereal presence, I embarked on a journey to understand the significance of her references and messages. Each encounter with her ghostly apparition deepened my resolve to uncover the hidden meanings woven within these supernatural experiences. One evening, as I shared my mother's home, a conversation unfolded. I confided in her about my encounters with my sister's ghost, recounting the moments when her spectral presence had reached out to me. To my astonishment, my mother revealed that she too had heard my sister's voice and had been trying to decipher the enigmatic references she made. Together, we delved into the memories and shared experiences that we had with my sister, searching for connections that could shed light on the messages that she was conveying. We retraced our steps, revisiting the times when fractions and mathematics had played a prominent role in our lives, uncovering hidden ties and memories that had been tucked away. As we delved deeper into the realm of the unexplainable, we stumbled upon a revelation that left us breathless. My sister's affinity for mathematics, particularly fractions, mirrored my own. It was a subject we both struggled with our formative years, a shared experience that had bonded us to our academic challenges. Through her ethereal presence, she aimed to remind me of our unspoken connection and offer guidance to my nephew who faced similar struggles. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place, as if orchestrated by some unseen force. The spectral visits, the inexplicable behavior of Chester, and the vanishing book all formed a tapestry of supernatural occurrences, interwoven with love and a desire to protect and guide those left behind. While the answers to some questions eluded us, the presence of my sister's ghost became a source of solace and reassurance. Her ethereal essence bridged the gap between the physical and the spiritual, offering a sense of continuity and reminding us that love transcends the boundaries of life and death. In the years that followed, my sister's ghostly presence continued to make its presence known, weaving its way into our lives in an ever-present reminder of the profound bond that we had shared. Through her, I learned to embrace the mysteries of the unknown, finding comfort in the inexplicable and drawing strength from the connection that defied the boundaries of mortality. As I reflect on these encounters, I find myself humbled by the profound mysteries that exist beyond our comprehension. The supernatural realm, once a realm of skepticism, has become a source of wonder and fascination, offering glimpses into the greater tapestry of existence. In the end, the story of my sister's ghostly visits transcends the confines of rational explanation. It serves as a testament to the enduring power of love and the unbreakable bonds that connect us across the realms. It's a reminder that even in the face of loss and separation, the ties that bind us together remain unbreakable. In the depths of my soul, I carry the cherished memories of my sister, intertwined with the ethereal encounters that have shaped my perception of the world. Her ghostly presence has become a guiding light, illuminating the path I walk and instilling within me a profound appreciation for the interconnectedness of all things. Through my experiences, I've come to understand that the spiritual realm is not confined to the pages of folklore or to the imagination of storytellers. It exists as a tangible force, subtly interwoven into the fabric of our reality, patiently awaiting our willingness to acknowledge its existence. In embracing the enigmatic nature of these encounters, I've also discovered a profound sense of healing and closure. The presence of my sister's ghost, though initially unsettling, has ultimately become a source of comfort and reassurance. It serves as a testament to the eternal nature of our bond and offers a glimpse into the possibility of life beyond the physical realm. As I continue to navigate the intricacies of my own existence, I carry the wisdom imparted by these encounters. I've learned that our departed ones never truly leave us. They continue to walk alongside, offering guidance and protection in ways both seen and unseen. They find subtle ways to make their presence known, reminding us that they are forever a part of our journey. While the mysteries surrounding my sister's ghostly visits may never be fully unraveled, I have come to appreciate the beauty and wonder found within the unknown. It's within these uncharted territories that the magic of life truly thrives, beckoning us to explore, question, and embrace the extraordinary. So, I recount my encounters with my sister's spectral presence, and I do so with a sense of reverence and gratitude. I'm definitely grateful for the moments of connection, the whispers in the night, and the profound reassurances that echo through the veil of existence. In the grand tapestry of life, we are but threads intricately woven together, our stories intertwined in a dance of love, loss, and spiritual awakening. And though the final chapter of this narrative may elude our grasp, we find solace in the enduring power of the unbreakable bonds that transcend time and space, forever uniting us with those we hold dear. My grandmother's house. There's a reason that we hated to visit. Let me take you on a journey into the depths of my experiences, where strange sensations and inexplicable occurrences left an indelible mark on my psyche. It all began when I was a mere child, somewhere between the ages of 6 and 8. In my grandparents' house, there resided a nightlight in the hall, casting its gentle glow, allowing a glimpse into the adjacent living room. However, one particular night, a peculiar phenomenon unfolded before my young eyes, engulfing the hallway in an impenetrable darkness. It was as if the sinister force had transformed the once familiar space into an abyss of nothingness, shrouding even the vibrant atomic orange Barcalounger, which my grandfather adored and my grandmother despised. Curiosity propelled me out of bed at such a late hour as I embark on the solemn journey to the bathroom. Yet, as I traversed the dimly lit hallway, disconcerting pressure manifested in my ears, reminiscent of the sensation one experiences when their ears pop during a flight. Eventually, I found myself standing in the bathroom, clutching a Q-tip in my tiny hand. Just as I was about to insert it into my left ear, my grandfather, a figure of solace and reassurance, materialized in the doorway. Concern laced his voice as he inquired about the source of my distress. Attempting to articulate the enigmatic darkness and inexplicable pressure, I faltered, choosing to omit the details of what I had witnessed. Oblivious to the hidden truths that had lingered within me, my grandfather hurriedly retrieved a heat compress, intending to alleviate the discomfort in my ears. The secret remained locked away, undisclosed to my loving guardian. Years slipped by and I found myself in the throes of adolescence, age 15 or 16, during a fateful Christmas visit to my grandparents' home. It was during this visit that my father, in a rather unconventional manner, had brought about the demise of our Christmas tree. Unbeknownst to me, a profound revelation awaited, far surpassing the significance of a toppled tree. Nestled within the living room, sleep overcame me, only to be abruptly interrupted by a startling realization. My period had commenced its monthly arrival, yet it wasn't the onset of womanhood that initiated the events that unfolded. In retrospect, I had attributed the ensuing episode to the physical changes occurring within my body. However, my sister, with whom I later reconnected with, unveiled the truth, refuting any notions of dreams, sleepwalking, or hallucinations. According to her recollection, I had awoken and ventured into the dining area, where my grandmother and father engaged in a conversation about procuring a Christmas tree. As I stepped into the room, an inexplicable transformation gripped my countenance, rendering it devoid of color. The source of this drastic change lay in the chilling sight that greeted me. A boy, clad in antiquated brown overalls, reminiscent of a bygone era, stood ominously behind my grandmother, his gaze fixed upon me. He swiftly pivoted, exposing a void where his face ought to have been seen, and his piercing crimson eyes borne to the depths of my soul. Haunted by this petrifying encounter, I retreated to the fold-out bed, consumed by a potent cocktail of fear and bewilderment. Yes, the physical discomfort associated with my menstrual cycle may have plagued me, but it paled in comparison to the paralyzing impact of that otherworldly vision. Silenced by the weight of my own terror, I refrained from sharing this unearthly encounter with my mother and grandmother, forever harboring the burden of this unspoken truth. The passage of time ushered in my 25th year, a juncture in my life which fate conspired to bring forth a series of events that would ultimately force me to confront the haunting specter of my past. It was during this period that my sister, burdened by the care of our ailing grandmother, reached out to me in a state of panic. Something sinister had taken hold of our ancestral home after our beloved grandmother had been relocated to a nursing facility. A question heavy with trepidation hung in the air. Was our grandmother's house haunted? Caught in the clutches of my own personal demons, the memory of that fateful Christmas visit resurfaced, intertwining with my sister's distressing revelation. Though I could not fully articulate the depth of my own encounter, the mere mention of a haunting sent shivers down my spine. Overwhelmed by a sense of responsibility and armed with my own spiritual inclinations as a practicing Wiccan, I reluctantly offered my assistance to my sister. Guided by intuition and ancient wisdom, I created and consecrated 2 protective seals, imbued with positive energy to ward off any malevolent forces that might lurk within the house. With careful deliberation, I provided my sister with explicit instructions on their placement, emphasizing the significance of hidden areas where negative energy might congregate. One seal, a tangible talisman, found its home within her wallet, a constant companion to safeguard her within the confines of that haunted house. The gravity of the situation demanded utmost secrecy, prompting me to caution my sister against divulging this knowledge to her boyfriend or any other visitors who might unknowingly become entangled in the web of the supernatural peril. Despite their curiosity, I shielded them with the pretense of safeguarding their well-being. Days turned into weeks, and the energy within the house appeared to shift, as if acknowledging the presence of the mystical seals I had bestowed upon my sister. The inexplicable occurrences, once a regular torment, diminished in intensity, gradually receding into the background. It was as if the sinister entity, the same malevolent force that had haunted my childhood, had been subdued, quelled by the power of my spiritual intervention. Yet, as the dust settled and the house was ultimately sold following our grandmother's passing, the true nature of the entity remained a haunting enigma. My grandmother, despite her resilient spirit, had been plagued by pervasive negativity that permeated the very essence of the house. Her partner, my grandfather, valiantly sought to counterbalance the oppressive atmosphere with his infectious joy, but it seemed that something far more insidious had gripped their dwelling. It was my unwavering conviction that what I had witnessed as a wide-eyed teenager was nothing other than a malevolent demon lurking in the shadows, preying upon the emotional vulnerabilities of my unsuspecting grandparents. Years later, during a heartfelt conversation with my sister, the suppressed memory and unspoken fears came surging to the surface. In a moment of revelation, I shared with her the chilling encounter that I had experienced during the Christmas holiday so long ago. To my astonishment, she corroborated my account, recounting a strikingly similar version of the demonic presence that had haunted the home. The shared terror forged an unbreakable bond between us, offering solace in the knowledge that we were not alone in the harrowing experience. Reflecting upon the events that unfolded, I became firmly convinced that it was the power and energy infused within the seals I had created that had acted as a deterrent, instilling fear within the malevolent entity that plagued her grandmother's house. The sense of comfort and security those seals brought me remained unparalleled, leading me to adopt a ritualistic practice of placing protective seals in every place I reside, seeking solace and a shield against the unknown. Whether it be the new apartment, a cozy cottage, or even a humble abode, I find reassurance in the act of consecrating my surroundings, invoking ancient symbols of protection, and imbuing them with my own intentions and positive energy. The seals, carefully crafted with a delicate balance of symbolism and spiritual significance, become guardians of my space, warding off negative energies and inviting only positivity and harmony into my life. With each seal I create, I infuse it with personal meaning, incorporating elements that resonate with my own journey, beliefs, and experiences. It's a labor of love, an expression of my deep-seated desire to create an environment where I can thrive and find tranquility. As I place these sacred talismans in hidden nooks and corners, their presence becomes a constant reminder of the unseen forces that exist around us. They serve as a potent symbol of my unwavering belief in the power of intention and the ability to shape our own reality. In times of uncertainty or unease, I find solace in the knowledge that these seals stand as beacons of protection, guarding against the malevolent influences that may seek to infiltrate my space. Each time I inscribe the intricate patterns upon the seal's surface, I'm transported to a realm beyond the physical, tapping into the timeless wisdom that flows through the universe. It's in these moments of creation and consecration that I feel a profound connection to something greater than myself, a transcendent energy that flows through my veins and empowers my spirit. These seals have become an integral part of my spiritual practice, intertwining with my daily rituals and serving as a constant reminder of the unseen forces that shape our lives. From the moment I awaken to the setting sun, I engage in prayer, meditation, and affirmation, fortifying the protective boundaries of my sealed space. With each passing day, I cultivate a deeper understanding of the sacred symbiosis between myself and the energies that surround me. While some may dismiss these practices as mere superstition or esoteric beliefs, I remain steadfast in my conviction. The power of intention, belief, and manifestation of positive energy can't be understated. In a world brimming with chaos and uncertainty, my seals provide an anchor, a sanctuary in which I can retreat, recharge, and gather strength. So as I journey through life, traversing different dwellings and embarking on new adventures, my seals accompany me, serving as loyal sentinels guarding against the unseen terrors that may lurk in the shadows. They're more than just mere trinkets or symbols. They're a testament to my unwavering faith, a visual representation of the protective barrier I create to shield myself from malevolent forces that may seek to disrupt my path. In the tapestry of my existence, these seals are the threads that we weave together, moments of solace, empowerment, and spiritual connection. They are tangible expressions of the intangible, a bridge between the physical and the metaphysical, reminding me that I'm not alone on this ethereal journey. And so, with each new day, I carry forth my seals, stepping into the world with renewed vigor and an unwavering belief in the power of protection. For they are not just seals, they are gateways to a realm of harmony, a sanctuary amidst the tumultuous ebb and flow of life.